Hey, what's up everybody? So today I'm servicing a 90-gallon in-the-wall tank. Now we've been servicing this tank from anywhere from, I believe, like 8 months to a year. And when we first started, when we first acquired this tank, we inherited it from another service company. And we were dealing with Mahano anemones, aptasia, fish aggression issues, a bunch of stuff. I have some past videos of going over this tank. But I'm happy to say, through a lot of hard work, that we were able to get this tank to take a complete 180 turn, and it's on the right path. The fish are all getting along, they're all healthy, they're all eating well. The corals are all doing a lot better. The tank overall is just healthy. There's no aptasia, and there's hardly any Mahanos left. We get them when we see them. But unfortunately, I am really frustrated, and I don't mean that in a negative or a bad way. It's more or less, there's a lot of challenges and obstacles that we're having to face when dealing with this tank. And I wanted to share those with you because, number one, share the experience, but two, also if you guys have any advice or any comments that you would like to add to help us, I greatly appreciate it. So let's go ahead and get into it. Now, because this customer has had this tank for about, I think going on 2 years or something like that, I'm not quite sure, but it's been a while. And the previous time he's had it, the tank wasn't thriving, it wasn't doing good, so he wasn't able to have the tank that he wanted. So now that the tank is where it's at the point where it's doing really well, corals are, when you put a coral in it, they're all taking off, they're all looking really great. We're dealing with an issue of getting a little too impatient, which is completely understandable. We've all been there. You get your tank is doing good, you want to rush out and you see all these beautiful corals and you want them. I completely understand that. Hell, I've been there before. We've all been there before. But since, I've been there before, I know what that leads to, and unfortunately it's not good. You go out, you buy a bunch of coral, you buy them too fast, not realizing that every new addition changes the complexity, it changes the chemistry of your tank. And when you add a bunch of coral at once or a bunch of livestock at once, it can make a drastic swing. It can throw the tank completely off. So once those corals get settled in, things like your nitrate, phosphate, calcium, and alkalinity, those are all going to be impacted. Not to mention, you want to make sure you're buying your coral from a reputable spot. You want to make sure that you're not going to introduce any type of parasite in there that can stay in your tank and do some real damage to your corals and kill a lot of the corals. And not to mention, you want to have a little bit of time to kind of think things out and see what corals are going to do well in your tank and what corals aren't going to do well in your tank, which ones are going to thrive. And, plan out an area where each coral is going to be placed and make sure that they all have enough room to grow and that they're not going to be fighting each other and end up having chemical warfare in your tank. So enough of, me rambling on about this. I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent. The reason why I'm addressing this, the reason why I'm talking about this is because we have this situation where the customer is really excited, and rightfully so, that their tank is doing well, and went and spent a bunch of money on coral, even against our better advice. And because we service the tank, it's our job to keep the coral alive. And I think it's important for us to give the honest truth and tell the customers, what's going to work and what's not going to work. And sometimes that can get a bit frustrating and it can get lost in translation. So this is kind of a review of me dealing with this tank and what we're going through. So here we go. So we have some new coral additions for this tank that's already loaded. We have some acans, some zoas. It looks like, what are those, Connor? Those are King Midas?
I'm not too good on that zoa naming. Too many of them.
I think it's King Midas. If anybody knows, please comment. We got some really nice blastos. These things are really beautiful. Nice. And we have what looks to be like a Goniopora. We have a Sophastria over here. And it looks like some Rastas. And I'm not sure what's in there. So we have to find room in this tank for those corals, which will be a fun challenge. Scully's dead, so we'll have this little area right there that we can put something. Carnivores gone, so we can also use that space too. So you can see some of the corals already aren't doing well, but yet there's still some coral additions that just came, so it's a bit of an issue. So we're gonna go ahead and do a water change, test the water, make sure everything's good to go for the new coral additions. Also, we just got a new shipment as we were here from Top Shelf Aquatics, which is a pretty reputable coral company based out of, I believe it's Orlando. And they have some really nice stuff, a little pricey, but they have some really nice stuff. So the customer just got a big order from them. So we're gonna go ahead and open up this box and see what's inside. So here's one of the coral that we got. It's a Trachophilia. It's a beautiful coral, really expensive, but an absolutely gorgeous coral. Now I'm gonna go ahead and dip it in some Coral Revive. This is good practice when getting new corals. You always wanna dip them. You know, it's not 100% effective, but at least that way you can kind of get an idea of if you see any little hitchhikers that are on your coral. They usually come off in that bucket right there, and you can just kind of see if there's anything undesirable you don't want to get in your tank. So fast forward to the end of the job. You know, we got all the corals in, we got them all acclimated, everybody's chilling. Now, there is some issues because there's not a lot of real estate left in this tank. So there is going to be some issues when placing the corals long term. There's going to be some coral warfare, there's going to be some stinging and stuff like that. There's just not enough room in this tank for all these corals, so we're going to have to come up with a game plan. But for now, the most important thing for me to do right now is to get these corals acclimated and get them happy and accustomed to the tank. And we'll address the other stuff next time we're here in about a week. So here we are a week later, and this is the same video you guys saw at the beginning. So it's pretty much as predicted. There are some problems. You see those anemones right there are stretching out and stinging that Favi and that acan. The torch coral is also in the mix there. You see the Westophilia that we got from Top Shelf is kind of retracted, not as big as I like to see it. But you know, overall the water chemistry is great. The corals that have their own space and have enough room are doing great. So it's definitely not a water chemistry issue. There's a couple things that are going on here. One, and probably the most obvious, is the corals are just too packly tight together, and they're stinging each other and they're encroaching on each other, and it's causing all types of tissue recession on the coral. And you can see that bird's nest right there is pretty much done for. Xenia is taking off and just taking up more room, and so I'm gonna have to go ahead and get in there and frag that up. But yeah, overall the coral is not looking good, and I had to adjust this little hammer coral. I had to put him down because he was opening so big. He was starting to sting that Favia right there. There's just not enough room for everybody. And then you have this Goniopora that's dying off. I just put a new frag in there. It's just, everything's just so packed tight that the corals don't have the room to expand and open up like they should. And corals are starting to battle each other, and it's just a shame because this is really expensive. You know, there's a lot of money thrown into this tank, and it's really tough to watch it die. Meat Coral's doing well because, you know, he's got his own little room and stuff like that. So the other thing that is a problem in this tank that I wanted to address is we had originally an issue with Aptasia in this tank. So we put an Aptasia eating foulfish in here. And I also think he is starting to bother a lot of the corals. I think he's starting to nip, even though the customer says that he doesn't notice any nipping. I definitely think there's a problem with the Aptasia eating foulfish nipping at the corals. So we're gonna end up having to take that fish out because it's become a real problem. And even though the customer says, hey, listen, I don't see him nipping, I don't see him biting the corals, I'm 100% sure that that's what's happening. And it's not gonna be easy getting that foul fish out of here, but we gotta do it because I think it's definitely stressing the corals out. So a mix between being nipped on and not having enough room, it's creating, you know, quite the issue. So if there's anything to take away from this video, is just, you know, take your time, know the limits of your tank. I know it's exciting to want to buy a bunch of coral and have that show tank that you see on, you know, Instagram and YouTube and all that. But just know that those tanks are set up just for entertainment purposes. Those aren't long-term tanks. They can't be. It wouldn't work out. As you can see with this tank, you know, it was the same kind of idea. Hey, I watched this Instagram post, look at all these corals. It's not sustainable. It's not long-term. Corals are going to grow. They need room, like I've been stressing in this video. So manage your expectations the best you can, because listen, folks, I mean, keep it 100% real, there's probably, you know, close to $10,000 that's invested in this tank right now in corals, and you know we're watching it get stung, and we're watching it get recede, and we're watching corals die, and that's not. It's like watching money getting flushed down the toilet, and I don't want that for anybody because I've been there. And at the end of the day, this is my job. My job is to take care of the fish. My job is to make sure that the tank thrives and the corals do well. But again, we have to keep reasonable expectations. There's limits to what we can do. We can't perform, miracles. And this is a living, breathing system. It's not a piece of artwork. It's not furniture that you can just shove and everything just kind of fits. So getting that across to as many people as I can, I think to me is important. To kind of respect the process. What took Mother Nature billions of years to accomplish, we're trying to replicate in a small little box in a matter of months. So let's just keep that in mind. All right, well, I guess I got everything off my chest that I needed to. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you have any advice or any type of comments you'd like to add, please drop it down below, and let me know what you guys think about what you see on Instagram and YouTube and the reefing hobby, and let me know if you think it's okay or if you'd like to see things change. All right, I hope everybody ends up having a good day and have a good Easter and all that. Talk to you next time.